Hi, I'm Steve Podmore. I'm the founder of Transform Global. And in this presentation, I'm going to talk about the funding strategy for the new World Bank, but better. Well, we've got separate presentations that detail the bank itself, the fund, the foundation. And what we'll do is just give a few highlights. Well, Transform Global Media is designed to be our in-house communications agency, but also the holding company for our wholly owned subsidiaries that we've developed in-house, or I've developed over the years that this model has been in progress. They include BigCrowd.net and FundingTheGlobalGoals.tv. Well, Big Crowd is designed to be a funding collaboration platform that itself can be a global business and a very exciting one that helps find, fund, and support what we call big impact game changers, which are those people in various ways, for-profit and not-for-profit, that are addressing the sustainable development goals, and enables people to collaborate with them and help fund them in the most exciting of ways using incentive competitions and direct awards. Well, that's BigCrowd.net, and FundingTheGlobalGoals.tv is also designed to be our in-house multi-format media platform that enables us to shine a spotlight on the kind of financial innovation that the world needs, helps connect the dots and get new funding structures and mechanisms out there, and also find deal flow and an ecosystem of providers and partners for everything else that we're doing. So that's Transform Global Media. Then separately, the bank includes an investment arm, which will be our off the balance sheet investment arm for our own activity to build up capacity for the bank. Now, as you'll learn in a moment, the goal for the bank is to raise £4 billion up to and including the IPO. Now, of course, we're starting small. We'll cover that in a moment. But that would mean about £1.5 billion would be spent on internal investments, both acquisitions and investments, into what we deem platform activity. So this could be other corporate finance and impact investing organizations. It could include data providers, technology providers, media providers, and others that give us banking capability so the model can be fit for purpose and able to scale all over the world. Then separately, we've got the banking function, that is those who are doing the fundraising and the structuring of new instruments or helping roll them out or invest in other funds, raising capital for other funds and other high impact structures. And then, of course, we've got the asset or fund management teams. Now, they're essentially a separate wholly owned subsidiary that would also, and this is all to come to fruition, we don't have all the people in place yet, but we believe we can get them for some very exciting reasons. And they will be the people who help manage the SDG 360 Game Changer Fund, which would also be done in conjunction with a number of cornerstone partners, which we'll talk about in a little while, or in a separate presentation on the fund itself. So we're raising £3 million in pre-seed. Now, that £3 million is designed to get the teams operational, to get the Big Crowd and FundingTheGlobalGoals.tv models also producing content and getting out there and generating subscribers. But it's also about $500,000 of it is designed to be spent with two cornerstone projects. One is called Builder and the other is called Power Builder. And Power is the work of Carlos Caballero Nunez. And Carlos has been reinventing the electric motor for approaching the last 10 years. Essentially what he's done, and a team with some grant and equity, is they have gone back to base principles with the electric motor, which the Inform will know is the number one user of electricity all over the world. Motors are everywhere. And the reality is they haven't innovated extensively for a very, very long time. What Carlos has done is he's figured out two really critical components. First of all, reliability matters. And second, energy is a huge cost. So what he's been able to do is to use the design thinking that is used in aviation and the materials and the modern methods of control to reinvent the motor so it's considerably more efficient and many times more reliable. This has already been proven on a bench level, but of course it has to go to market and it has to go to scale. Now, this is where some of the contacts that I've been able to build up over the years have the ability to play a very, very important role. So what Carlos needs is the ability to help build the team and get the right capital for the business model that he's developing. Now, what's really exciting is getting the right capital for this model is really about the right patient capital that can add value, but also potentially open up markets that might be difficult to open up on a standalone basis. Now, here we have Kim Christofte. Now, Kim has been working for a number of years to reinvent construction using a software-based approach. As many people know, the innovators are often not ones from a particular industry, but the ones who look at things from base principles, from a new angle. And Kim's done that with the concept of house building and small building construction. Now, this isn't skyscrapers. It's not construction of a massive scale and size, but it is the most exciting kind of a construction. And it means that house building, where there are massive labor shortages and sustainability challenges, can be scaled intelligently with a distributed manufacturing model and a localized manufacturing model, not manufacturing in large plants and manufacturing facilities, but where using a software-based system that enables blocks effectively to be cut out and joined together very quickly into modular construction, home building can be revolutionized and achieved in 50% or less of the time of conventional building. But what's really exciting is Kim has also figured out how to incorporate intelligent energy systems into these homes or into these commercial buildings. Now, he's already built 50 or so and in the testing phase of the business model, in the product market fit, as they call it in tech. And it's really now primed to scale. Now, Kim has built this up and also requires the right capital to scale, but also the right technology. And the right technology can include the motors and the other technologies that Carlos has actually created. And when you put this together, it really redefines what smart construction is all about. And it creates a ready-made market for Carlos's motors and other technologies that he's developing under the Power banner. So what we've realized is we can do something really quite incredible. We can spend about £500,000 of the 3 million getting these projects operational. We've already introduced partners who have construction projects in play and who want to use the Builder and the Power system combined, and who we've pulled together into a dream team where people in Norway and in Canada and in Mexico and in the United Kingdom and also elsewhere in Europe have well over £200 million worth of projects that can be built in the next 3 to 5 years using this system. And where we basically have put together a team that is working incredibly well. So with that first 3 million, 2.5 of it or so will be spent building the talent and the capability for the bank that enables it to be very investable, as well as our own platforms, Big Crowd and fundingtheglobalgoals.tv. And the other £500,000 will be spent essentially building those teams and getting Power and Builder what we would call investment ready or further developed. So the models are really clear, easy to understand, and very, very investable, directly and indirectly. What we'll also be doing is raising grant money, and that grant money will be internally for Transform Global, but also for those two projects. They are both eligible for money from the UK government, from the European Union, from the Canadian government, and from elsewhere. So we'll be helping them with those grant and donor applications to really put in place additional capacity. And that will then enable us very quickly to do what we call a £50 million seed round. Now, we know that in other terms, a 50 million seed round would be quite large, but with this, it really is enabling us to seed the actual SDG 360 Game Changer Fund. And what that means is that the fund will then be able to invest into both Power and Builder to help them ramp and include or increase their scale and their team capability and their underlying infrastructure so that they are primed to scale all over the world. Now, from that 50 million, the other 35 million will be used internally, again, to build the marketing and capacity for Big Crowd and funding the globalgoals.tv, as well as the capability for the bank, and really where people who are truly understanding of the need to scale sustainable finance and intelligent impact investment all over the world. There's a need to put trillions of dollars, literally, especially into the capacity building, which Transform Global and funding the globalgoals.tv and all of our platforms will focus on. So that 35 million enables us to really increase the capability of the team and the advisory board, and then do a 300 million pound combined raise. Well, that 300 million pound combined raise, 100 million will be equity into the bank, and 200 million will be a pre-commitment, and that pre-commitment will get discounted equity when the fund is actually raised, but it's only paid over when the fund is raised. So with the 100 million, we'll be doing a number of things. We'll be, again, increasing the talent for the scale and the management of the fund. We will be increasing the marketing and the development for Big Crowd, which will be very cash generative, and also funding the globalgoals.tv. But we'll also be putting 10 million aside for retainers for some of the largest investment banks in the world. We've got discussions with a couple that are shown on this slide, but we want to make sure that we really have the right aligned partners, and therefore that 10 million pound in retainers will make sure we really can get those banks competing to work with us to raise the £9 billion fund. Now, we have an idea which sovereign wealth funds and which institutions will cornerstone this fund and why they will do so. But of course, they will do so on the basis of the talent that sits inside the bank and the partnerships that we can establish. So it helps if you've got a really nice carrot to establish those partnerships and a little bit of an ability to whet the appetite. Well, 10 million is more than an appetite, an appetizer, but the 200 million in pre-commitment to the fund, that actually becomes a success fee. And those investors, they essentially benefit from discounted equity, which they only pay over the 200 million when the 9 billion fund is secured. So that's how we believe we can raise that money in record time. But there is an interesting component of the business. The fund is designed to do four things, one of which is actually to create a strategic investment into the bank, which aligns all investors. And therefore, the goal really is that the investors in the fund, they benefit on the success of the bank, and the bank is therefore capitalized properly as a direct result. So the bank or the fund will be hardwired. When it is launched, it will make an immediate investment of 400 million into the bank, which then is effectively the manager of the fund. And therefore it means we're properly capitalized and we can really scale the teams and the capability and the infrastructure required to manage a fund of this kind. Now, the fund will also do what we call special opportunities. It will invest in other fund types and structures essentially at a general partner or investment management level. It will do what we call active impact direct investing through what we call the butterfly basket portfolio structure. And through third parties, it will also do active impact investing, but that will be indirect, meaning we'll be investing through other third parties. And when you put that all together, it gives the perfect, or I would call ideal, capability and conditions for this SDG 360 Game Changer Fund. Risk management, long-term holding period, the ability to do early, mid, and late stage, as well as to load balance, do impact load balancing. So then There will be a period of fund deployment, of course, and the idea is that the fund itself will list as a vehicle 3 to 4 years from launch. Could be a little later, could be sooner. We think 2 years is the earliest and 5-6 years is the latest. But really the sweet spot would be a 3-4 year period to list. And that means the fund would be topped up to about 14 billion. And of course, that means that asset base can increase over time, as we'll explain in a moment. So then we go to the bank, back to the bank. The goal for the bank is to raise £1 billion as a mezzanine raise. And that billion would enable a partial exit to some of the initial investors. And it would also prepare for the IPO. And that IPO, the goal is to raise a further 2.5 billion at IPO, which means over 4 billion of equity would be raised for the bank and 14 billion for the fund. Now, value creation. So as we've just shown, that's the path for us to raise 18 billion pounds over a 3 to 4 year period. Now, 75 billion of that would essentially, we believe that could be turned into 75 billion of value in a 6 to 8 year period. Now that value comes from the underlying revenues and capability from the bank. So about 25 billion of that 75 billion would be the value that the bank would have, and 50 therefore would be what is the value in the fund based upon a number of years of investing, the quite modest returns that this particular kind of fund needs to succeed, and the embedded value it can build up over time. So if we achieve that, the question is, who do we incentivize to do so? Because if you remember, there is no carried return, meaning there's no 20% of returns on the fund that would go to the managers. There is the fees. The fund would have a 2% of annual assets under management, adjusted every 5 years. So essentially that would be the fees. So initially it would be 180 million a year, and then after IPO it would be a 230 million a year fee, half of which goes to the bank and half of which goes to SDG 360 Fund Management, the asset management arm that manages the fund, and they would do that. And we've got a separate presentation on this. But there will be thousands of employees at this point. This is designed to be a truly global vision. And therefore, the model is that those personnel, they have the ability to earn what we call restricted impact options. So they're performance-based stock options, but where the performance is also linked not only to financial returns, but to the impacts that are targeted and achieved. And therefore, that means that the most junior people can be sitting on shares worth a few 100,000 or at the low few millions, and the most senior people can be sitting on shares that are worth considerably more. But what that means really is that the investors get a very healthy return on investment. It's fully aligned. But what it also means is the active impact investment we can catalyze could be ginormous. Now, although we're talking about 75 billion of value, when you look at the follow-on investments that those entities that we support directly or indirectly, what they can raise, whether this is for infrastructure, whether it is for agriculture, whether it is for water. I mean, the goal is to address all of the themes and sub-themes of the Sustainable Development Goals. And especially it is to deliver the parts of investment that are most catalytic. So often that will be called the capacity building, where we're helping with the capital formation, the early stage investment, the what would be called traditionally the valley of death. Well, we believe that if it's done right, and if it's done with the right kind of innovation vehicles, we can deliver, enable failure. Failures will happen, of course, but we're doing it in a really intelligent way, where the reasons things fail are reduced to the right reasons, not the wrong reasons. So the whole point about this is it's really designed to enable impact ventures and infrastructure projects of all types to enter the market and then raise appropriate capital from wherever is most appropriate. And the bank itself will help that. Now, although, of course, the fund will enable us to invest and to generate a return, the goal is to do that in a way that's really efficient and can enable us to deliver the really greatest impact around these truly important issues. The fact is they are risk and resilience threats as well as nice to have goals, the Sustainable Development Goals. And therefore, the more we can leverage that money, the more we can deploy it into more activity, the more essentially we're buying an index, if you like, or creating an index of everything that is high impact in the coming years. But we're managing the risk management by doing early, middle, and late, and the on-market activity as well. So that means that, yes, we might be able to raise 18 billion directly and unlock 75 billion and up of value for our internal stakeholders. But what we can do for the market is potentially put many, many hundreds of billions or more of active impact investment that we can catalyze as a result. And what that means is the impacts around the SDGs are just massive. So that's the goal, is to create a bank that is truly fit for purpose, that is very, very attractive for personnel to come and work with. They might work with the venture community. They might be working in impact investment, in institutional investment. They could be working in media, in technology, and they can all come with high talent density and alignment of interests. So that's the vision for the funding strategy. We will do a separate presentation on how, on who gets what, on what the investment opportunity is. So thanks for watching. There are more presentations, as we've explained. You can find details in the YouTube about information, or indeed on any of the platforms or the transformglobal.co website. If you want to get in touch, if you're interested and want to learn more, you can join me in the Clubhouse rooms that I run on a regular basis. Find me on Clubhouse, Steve Podmore, at Steve Podmore, or indeed follow the links that you can see. Well, thanks for watching, and I look forward to speaking to you directly or engaging with you soon. But if you want to be involved with Transform Global on any level, don't hesitate to get in touch. Many thanks.